What would you do if your friends consistently exploited your generosity, leaving you to foot their exorbitant bills? In today's story, our protagonist's choice is a masterclass in how to handle it. I, Alex, 27M, have been a part of a small circle of friends, about 8 of us in total, ever since our college days, but within this group, there are 2 individuals, Chloe and Mark, who are nothing short of absolute leeches. Going out for lunch with them means you can expect them to order the most expensive items on the menu, then launch into some elaborate sob story about their financial woes, ultimately dumping half the bill squarely onto your shoulders. Last weekend, Daniel, another friend from the group, mentioned a casual dinner gathering. I immediately told him that if Chloe or Mark were going to be there, I wouldn't be able to make it. He acknowledged their presence but urged me to set my feelings aside and just come this one time. This is perhaps where I might have been a bit of an inconsiderate person. I agreed to his plea and confirmed my attendance. I arrived at the restaurant, and we all settled in, catching up and chatting. Slowly, everyone started placing their orders. Most of our friends opted for dishes costing around $40. There were only about 6 of us present at the table. When it was Chloe and Mark's turn, they, predictably, both ordered expensive dishes, each totaling around $200. A collective tension, almost imperceptible to the oblivious duo, settled over the table. Then, it was my turn to order. Every eye at the table turned to me, a silent expectation hanging in the air. I calmly picked up the menu, pointed to the $4 Miller Lite, and with a polite nod, sent the waiter away. Daniel, looking genuinely confused, immediately asked why I hadn't ordered any food. My reply was simple: I just lost my appetite. The ripple effect was instantaneous and, to me, incredibly satisfying. The other 2 friends at the table, catching on to my silent protest, rose from their seats as well. They cancelled their food orders, opting only for drinks. It was a small act of solidarity, a subtle rebellion against the leeches. This reveals Chloe and Mark's greatest fatal flaw, their self-centeredness, which ultimately sealed their fate. After the main courses arrived, I watched Chloe and Mark, oblivious to the shift in atmosphere, begin to pick at their lavish food. The waiter, sensing the meal was winding down, then brought over the check. Mark, with an air of entitlement that always grated on my nerves, immediately grabbed the waiter and instructed him to split the check 6 ways. This was the moment. I stood up, my voice clear and firm, and corrected him, stating emphatically that the check was to be split 3 ways. Mark looked at me, his face a mask of utter confusion, and demanded to know why, since we always split the bill. I calmly reminded him that 3 of us had not eaten any food, and therefore, we would only be paying for our drinks. The realization dawned on his face, slow and painful. The final bill landed on Daniel's lap, a staggering $146.98. Despite him having likely only eaten around $50 worth of food, I remember the exact number. The image of his jaw dropping as he picked up that receipt is burned into my memory. Without a word, I slid a $10 bill towards the check, offered a polite goodbye to everyone, and walked out. It was, as some online would later say, brilliant. The next morning, my phone was a flurry of angry texts from Chloe and Mark, both accusing me of being an inconsiderate person for not ordering food and forcing them to pay more than they had anticipated. I honestly just laughed. Their expensive steaks alone were likely more than what they ended up paying, but to each their own, right? I also received a barrage of messages from Daniel, who was upset that I had pulled such a stunt and left him with such an outrageous bill, suggesting I should have simply not come. It's interesting because Daniel was the one who insisted I put my opinions aside and come. What he really meant was that I should have come and, as always, paid for Chloe and Mark's food, even though I had made my stance clear from the very beginning. This highlights the kind of enabling behavior that has allowed Chloe and Mark to continue their leech-like ways. A quick clarification: at this particular restaurant, the bar operates separately, meaning drinks are on a separate bill. And for those wondering about tipping, I live in Australia, where it's not customary. In 90% of restaurants here, they don't do separate checks, and if you're lucky, they might split the bill for you. Also, all the amounts I mentioned are in AUD, so you'd need to convert them to USD. Daniel could have easily asked Chloe and Mark to transfer him the money if he wanted to, but he's always been intent on helping them through their financial hardship. even though they're clearly just using him and constantly dragging me into their schemes. I admit my actions might have been immature, but I am utterly exhausted by being forced to play along. It's his money, and if he chooses to spend it on them, that's fine, but I refuse to pay for their extravagances. Daniel is a truly good friend of mine, albeit incredibly naive. I was simply trying to open his eyes to the kind of people he was helping. I will concede that it was a tad bit petty, as one commenter aptly put it. Hope Daniel opens his eyes, but right now, they seem superglued shut. The core lesson here is that sometimes, you have to take a stand to break a cycle of exploitation, even if it means ruffling some feathers. What would you have done in this situation?